A mi tole ugasnemo za mikrofone, ali kako?
Your Excellencies, members of Ifimes Council, members of Ifimes, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Allow me to welcome you on behalf of the International Institute for Middle East and Balkan Studies, Ifimes from Ljubljana, the organizer of today's lecture of the President of Foreign Policy Institute in Ankara, Turkey, Professor Dr. Hussein Baji, entitled Turkey and the Middle East After Arab Spring Revitalized. A special welcome and gratitude go to our guest, the acclaimed and highly respected Professor Baji. Welcome to Institute Ifimes. I would like to thank Ambassador, Her Excellency Aylin Tashan, for the cooperation we have since her arrival to Slovenia. Professor Dr. Hussein Baji is a professor of international relations at the Middle East Technical University, METU, in Ankara, where he was also the chair of the Department of International Relations from 2011 to 2015. He is also the president of the Foreign Policy Institute in Ankara and has been visiting professor in Germany, Italy, and Poland. He has published several books and larger numbers of articles of Turkey foreign policy and Turkiye-German relations. Professor Baji is a prominent TV and radio commentator in Turkey and member of IISS in London and the Center for European Policy Studies, CEPS, in Brussels, Belgium. In his lecture, Professor Dr. Hussein Baji will present his views on the situations in Turkey and the Middle East after the Arab Spring. The lecture will be in English, followed by a discussion with the guest lecturer moderated by myself, Zijad Bečirović, Director of Ifimes, and Professor Dr. Milan Jazbec, Editor of the International Scientific Journal European Perspectives and former Slovenian Ambassador to Republic. Spoštovani profesor dr. Hussein Baji, vaše ekscelence, člani sveta, svetovalnega odbora in člani Mednarodnega inštituta Ifimes, dame in gospodje, spoštovani udeleženci današnjega dogodka, vsi, ki nas spremljate prek spleta. Dovolite mi, da vas najprej pozdravim in se vam zahvalim, da ste se odzvali našemu povabilu na današnji dogodek, predavanju predsednika Foreign Policy Institute Ankara, Turčija, profesora dr. Huseina Badžija z naslovom Turčija in Bližnji vzhod po arabski pomladi. Posebna dobrodošlica zahvala gre našemu gostu, priznanemu in zelo cenjenemu profesoru Badžiju. Dobrodošli na Inštitut Ifimes. Zahvaljujemo se veleposlaništvu Republike Turčije s sedežem v Ljubljani in veleposlanici njeni ekscelenci Aylin Tašan za dobro sodelovanje, ki ga imamo od njenega prihoda v Slovenijo. Profesor dr. Hussein Baji je profesor mednarodnih odnosov na Bližnjovzhodni tehnični univerzi METU v Ankari, kjer je bil od leta 2011 do leta 2015 predstojnik oddelka za mednarodne odnose, je tudi predsednik Foreign Policy Institute v Ankari, bil je gostujoči profesor v Nemčiji, Italiji in na Poljskem, objavil je več knjig in člankov o turški zunanji politiki, turško-nemških odnosih. Profesor Baji je znan televizijski in radijski komentator v Turčiji, te član IISS-a v Londonu in Centra za evropske politične študije CEPS v Bruslju. V svojem predavanju bo profesor dr. Baji predstavil svoj pogled na aktualne razmere v Turčiji in na Bližnjem vzhodu po arabski pomladi. Predavanje bo v angleškem jeziku, sledila bo razprava z gostom, ki jo bosta vodila moja malenkost, Zijad Bečirović, direktor Ifimesa, in profesor dr. Milan Jazbec, urednik mednarodne znanstvene revije European Perspectives in nekdanji slovenski veleposlanik v Turčiji. A now, Professor Dr. Hussein Baji, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very happy to be here to not only to talk, but also to have good cooperation with Ifimes, between my institute, Foreign Policy Institute, and Ifimes for future discussions, intellectual exchange of ideas, because the world is not anymore the same since 24 of February this year. And the topic which I'm talking today is about Turkish foreign policy in the Middle East, after Arab Spring in particular, I will make some observations, comments, and I would like also to answer later on some questions if you have some questions there. I know that many people watch us from different countries already live, and I will start with the complicated area. This is the Middle East. Middle East is also not anymore the same as before. What Turkish foreign policy concerns there is also a matter of importance, geopolitically, geostrategically, geoeconomically, because this part of the world is going to become more and more important after the Russian-Ukrainian war, in particular concerning the oil and gas supply for European countries, but also for Turkey. Now, let me start, first of all, how Turkey looks to the Middle East. My observations will be from Turkish perspective, from Ankara perspective, an academic view where I do teach Turkish foreign policy, several regions, but Middle East also is one part of my writings and my teachings. Now, the modern Turkish Republic, established in 1923, had always in the mind that Middle East, after the end of the World War, despite the fact that it was Ottoman Empire's dissolution, that there are new countries emerged from 1919 to 1939, this between two world wars. And we all know that even Woodrow Wilson's principles have been contributing for later discussions, from decolonization to many other issues, what we will see after 1945 in particular. Henry Kissinger's statements, The World Order, one of his well-known publications, tell us actually, not only in his book Diplomacy, that the Middle East became part of not only Turkey, but of the great power conflict by Soviet Union and the United States of America. So it means in the Cold War years, Middle East had a different meaning than after the end of the Cold War. And how the Turkish foreign policy reacted to these developments will be one of my analysis. And of course, I asked the president, the chairman, please stop me if I'm talking more than foreseen time, because my brain is planned for 3 hours talk, which is not so easy. But just tell me, please, that I should stop. Let me start with this. The World War II actually was not only affecting the global order, but also the Middle East. Turkey, as one of the countries, starting with Afghanistan and Iran, the modernization process. Very interesting to compare where today Iran is and where Afghanistan is and where Turkey is. So the Turkish democracy as a soft power, as we will see, will be used in our relations with the other countries. But the World War I and World War II created new developments in economic sense, in political and in military sense. So Turkey was doing first in the 30s under Kemal Atatürk, Balkan Pact in 1934, Sadabad Pact in 1937, creating a belt of security through the military pacts. And Turkey was successful, to my understanding, not to join World War II, neither on the side of Americans, nor Germans, Italians. And this will create later on a big problem for Turkey. I will tell you later on when, after 1945, when the Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill divided the world in Yalta, where I have been, by the way, in Livadia Palace, there we see the emergence of a new world order. And this new world order, since 1945, is still valid. Today, the discussions, as the Turkish president says, the world is bigger than 5, does not change the reality that these 5 countries still have the privileges which was given them after the end of the Cold War. And so far, none of them is ready to leave these privileges for another new emerging world architecture or security architecture. This is a problem, not only for Turkey, but for the countries also who are now becoming more and more active in international politics. The number of the member countries of the United Nations of 194 countries, which was only 50 countries in 1945 when the United Nations was established. So looking from the perspective of Turkey, I want to remind the viewers, the listeners, about certain developments where Turkey is acting in a way that today we see the reflection of it after the Arab Spring in particular. So the mistakes and the right decisions. So the governments do take right decisions, but also wrong decisions. So these wrong and rights, as we know, two wrongs do not make one right, but there are decisions which have long-term implications. And Turkey is one of the countries after 1945 looking to the West because of the Soviet demands from Stalin to military bases at the Bosporus, on the Bosporus, and Kars and Ardahan cities in the north of Turkey. The Russia phobia, what we have today in European continent, in Central Europe, in the Balkans in particular, we had already in 1946, 47, 48. So we know what it means, the fight among the big powers. And Turkey, in entire Cold War years, have been squeezed between two world superpowers. But, and this but is important, Turkey is looking to the Middle East has been an important approach, because the American involvement in the Middle East became with 1945. Before, the Americans were not in the Middle East. There were France, Britain, some other European countries, but not Americans. And the Turkish direction look to more America and cooperate together after 1945 and the entire years. Turkey, for example, was such a geostrategic location that all the sea, lands, and airways are going through Turkey. Istanbul Airport from today is the best example as hub for many continents that the people fly. This geopolitical and geostrategic value of Turkey has been recognized by the Americans, and the Turkish change to more to go to Americans is a driving force for the Turkish President Ismet İnönü was actually the one who made this change. Later on, the period of Adnan Menderes from 1950 to 60 is the continuation of this orientation of Turkey to America and to the Middle East. So this Middle East policy of Turkey has been hand in hand with the Americans in order to prevent the Soviet expansionism in the Middle East. The policy of containment was also one of the policies where Turkey acted together with the United States of America. So Americans and the Turks have been always controversial. As George Harris said in his book, Turkish-American Relations, a troubled partnership. In the Middle East, Turkey is not only the one troublemaker. There are a lot of troubles, by the way. So Turkey is one of the troubles. And how Turkey looked to the Middle East. 2 points. One, the Turkish membership to NATO in 1952 created such an umbrella that the American nuclear protection was provided to Turkey, and Incirlik military base, which was established in 1952, is one of the best examples of it. The second one is the recognition of Israel by Turkey in 1949, just 8 months after its establishment, which was considered later on as a foreign policy last for Turkish foreign policy. Therefore, even today, just in 3 days' time, the Israeli foreign minister will visit Turkey, Saudi Prince Salman will visit Turkey on the same day. So after this Arab Spring, all these worsening relations between Turkey, Saudi Arabia is on the way to come back to normalization, in quotation. But before, we should go back to 50s again. The recognition of Israel, which lasted until 1956, because we had in Suez Channel crisis, Americans, the British and the French, Turkey supported, which was considered in Turkish literature as a big problem. And then Turkey reduced the ambassadorial level, just charge d'affaires until 90s. And after 90s, when Turkey started to have diplomatic relations with Israel, it was a new beginning again in her foreign policy, as it is the case now that after 2010, when Turkey had the conflict with Israel, now sporadically there are good relations, bad relations, and now again probably we go into good relations. Just recent visit of Israeli president to Turkey was one of the best examples of it. In the 50s, there was Arab nationalism. Many people forget this, that we had people like Jamal Abdel Nasser, who was succeeded later on Enver Sadat, and then later on Hosni Mubarak. The thing is here, Turkey wanted to become the leader, big brother of the Arab countries in the 50s, which was not accepted. The Turkish leadership in the Middle East has been always controversial. The desire that Turkey wants to become the leader is fine, understandable, but it should be accepted. It is not accepted and will be not accepted. So it is, again here, this situation. Many historians in the Middle East now, the Arabs, they criticize Ottoman Empire because the Ottoman Empire, they say, has been 400 years ruling power, and they Ottoman Empire stolen the history of the Arabs because the Arabs couldn't have any history. So since 1517, when Cairo was taken by the Turks, and all the orders came, of course, from Istanbul concerning the Arab lands, and the dissolution of Ottoman Empire, as many Arab states emerged, is another discussion why and how the Ottoman Empire was losing it, and how the modern Turkish Republic dealt with this problem. The neo-Ottoman discussions in the last 10 years, now we have full of books, researches about neo-Ottomanism in libraries from America to Russia. Is it so that there will be a neo-Ottomanism? I don't think so. But the fact is, the discussion started again because Turkey was very much involved in the Middle East, and Turkey became the consciousness of the Middle East without intervening in any Arab inner-Arab conflict, trying to be the mediator, trying to bring them to solve like Israeli-Palestinian conflict or Arab-Israeli conflict. And this made Turkey more reliable, trustable country in those years. But going back to 50s, once again, the establishment of Baghdad Pact in 1955, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, and the Great Britain, it was a very interesting establishment because the Americans never joined Baghdad Pact, supported it, but never joined it. As the Anthony Bevan, the Prime Minister from Britain, said, any military alliance in the Middle East cannot be against Israel. So Israel was, in other words, also protected by this. Adnan Menderes, the Turkish Prime Minister, who was really trying to bring the Arab countries into European security architecture, failed because of Arab nationalism. That today we do not have any Arab nationalist leader is a problem. There are many Arab countries, but no Arab leader. So this is, historically speaking, a new stage in Arab world, in particular the Arab League, which has 22 countries as a member, but we don't know who is the leader. So it is an open question again. Going back to 50s, the Bandung Conference was very interesting because from 1945 to 1962, we had the decolonization process where Britain, France, Netherlands, Belgium, one by one, they lost their territories from Africa to Asia. With the war in Algeria in 1962, we know that the decolonization process finished, and the Middle East, and this is a very interesting concept, Middle East is a region which is defined accordingly from different perspectives. It all depends. Do you talk to Near East, Middle East, Far East? You know, in the Iran and Turkey, for example, they have never been in the literature in the 60s, 70s considered as Middle East country. They are called Near East countries. Middle East countries basically covers, as Professor Pınar Bilgin wrote in her very enlightening book about the Middle East, how Turkey perceived the Middle East. The discussion whether Turkey is a Middle East country or will Turkey be one day look like Middle East country is an open question. It will be not the case. The Middle Easternization of Turkish foreign policy, as we say in the last 12 years, failed because of this resistance once by the developments of in the Arab world, 2003, Saddam Hussein, as we know, the international terrorism, and what is more important from Turkish side, that Middle East now became for Turkey more as a trade partner, and even the Turkish soft power, again, democracy, economic prosperity, etc., has been very important point that Turkey was developing with the Arab countries. Arab Spring, I will tell you there that the Arab Spring made it so that Turkey looked as the loser, principal loser of the Arab Spring, because the effect to Arab Spring by Turkey created later on the so-called precious loneliness, as the now Speaker of the Presidency, Ibrahim Kalın, put it from his perspective. The Bandung conference is important because Turkey was there trying to condemn the Soviet imperialism as well as the Western imperialism. So today we see again the same discussions, what the Russians do and how the Russians will be considered as expansionist one. Turkey saw this in 1955. So in the high times of ideological confrontation. In 1957, when Heisenberg Doctrine was declared, Turkey was one of the prime countries to support this. In 1958, in Iraq, again, 1958, 1990, and 2003, three times Iraq became the main target of these regional developments. In 1960, when in 1958, Iraq changed the government, and also the prime minister was killed, assassinated, and the Baghdad Pact turned into center. In 1960, 27 of May, when the first military intervention took place in Turkey, then the strong colonel of Turkish army, Alparslan Türkeş, said, Türkiye, so this is new terms. Sorry, we academics, we all have written Turkey and now change it to Türkiye. So I use this Türkiye and Turkey at the same time. Please understand me. I'm also in the process of integration now to this new terminology. He said, we are loyal to NATO and CENTO and all international treaties. So it was very important because in the 60s, Turkish foreign policy towards the Arab world changed. In the entire world, in the entire discussions in the Middle East, until 1980s, it is wrong to say that there is Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It was Arab-Israeli conflict. Palestinian-Israeli conflict is a new terminology, terminus technicus, since 1980s. It was before Arab-Israeli war. We don't talk about 6 days wars about Palestinian-Israeli war. It is Arab-Israeli war. Or in 1956, the Suez Channel crisis, it was again Arab-Israeli conflict. So it is another academic debate, academic discussion, that today the policy is reduced to Palestinians. But what type of Palestinians again, PLO or Hamas? So what type of discussions we have in Israel? And this is one of the problems in Turkish foreign policy, I would say, in recent years. Sometimes Turkey lost the compass, if you want, to whom to support. But coming back to 60s, in 1964, the American President Johnson sent a letter to Turkish Prime Minister Danis Metinöny, and he said, if Turkey is intervening in Cyprus, and if there is an aggression by Soviet Union, you may not use the American weapons. So the Turkish-American relations are not always patron-client relations. This is not. The Turks do not accept what the Americans do always. With the intention, the Americans do not take always the right decisions, as we know. They make also a lot of mistakes, and I can tell you from American Senates, thousands of wrong decisions in the books written, what type of wrong decisions they have taken, including Vietnam. But coming back to 60s again, Turkish foreign policy was changing now towards the Arab countries to the Middle East, where Turkey supported now more and more the Palestinian issue. In 1969, when the Masjid al-Aqsa attack started and the Islamic Conference organized, Turkey became a member of it. So this was something which changed the entire mentality also, because many countries, Arab countries, were not supporting Turkey in the case of Cyprus. This move from pro-Israeli policy now to go to move with more understanding to Arab world, it changed also the Arab mind towards Turkey. And I may once again remind here, the mindset is important. The Turkish mindset is not Arab mindset. So when I do read about the Arab mentality, Arab strategic thinking, etc., then I see how the Turks and the Arabs in general think differently. Very simple reason: they speak Arabic, we are speaking Turkish, and the language does care. As Boris Johnson said recently when AUKUS was established, they said, why do you do it? He said, oh, we Canadians, the British, Canadians, Australians, and the Americans, we speak the same language. Turkey is not member of Arab League. Why? Because we do not speak Arabic. One of the primary conditions is to be to speak Arabic. We have 57 countries, Muslim countries, and the majority of those countries, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, Iran. So many people make the mistake as if Islamic Conference is an Arab union. It is not. Arab Union is a different one. But the Turkish foreign policy towards Arab countries in the 60s and 70s became more and more important. Turkey changed her policy. The more Israel, in particular after the defeat of Jamal Abdel Nasser, of course, in 1967, and the 6 Days War in 1973, Israel becoming now more and more important for the American policy, and Henry Kissinger made this shuttle diplomacy policy. As you know, there's a joke like this. Henry Kissinger was invited by the Israeli Foreign Ministry to come and solve the problem between Arabs and the Israelis. He said, okay, I come. And the protocol man from Foreign Ministry expect in Tel Aviv airport, the jumbo jet from America, at that time newly put into market, a big jumbo jet lands. And 350 people come out. And the guy was having great eyes because he didn't expect so many people. And then Kissinger said, oh, don't worry, just give to me and to my advisors 2 rooms. All the others go to their relatives. So it was this joke which showed actually how the Americans became also this prime supporter of Israel. Every American president before elected, including Barack Obama, who was a little bit controversial, they have to confirm the Israeli security. Like the German Bundeskanzlers, 2 countries support is undeniable fact, Americans and the Germans. So including Angela Merkel, before she was elected, the last Bundeskanzler, she was also confirming, like now, the new German Prime Minister, Bundeskanzler, Olaf Scholz. But coming back to this 80s, Turkey in the 80s had, with the Arab countries, after the oil crisis in 1973, a good advantage because it was a little bit more better, closer to Arab countries. Turkey received oil from the Arab countries. There was a great understanding after 1973 in particular. But, and this but is important, 2 events shaped the Middle East and the perception of the great powers, both Americans and the Soviets. One, the Iranian Revolution in 1979 in January, and then the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. This created Turkey's geopolitical value much higher, which changed after 1990 when the Soviet Union dissolved. The changing geopolitics of Turkey. We take certain moments of the history and we have to understand the zeitgeist, the spirit of time, when the changes took place, how Turkey reacted, how Turkey considered, and how Turkey is perceived by the other side. It is a very important one. Turkey classically was not intervening into inner Arab conflict. It was a foreign policy principle since 1923, which will be changed by the Arab Spring. This is one of the, also in the literature, it is written that there is a diversion of the classical Turkish foreign policy to get more involved in the Arab politics. I'm talking here, of course, with the Arab Spring in Egypt, Muslim Brothers, and in Tunisia, in other countries, that Turkey gave the image that Turkey is supporting the Muslim Brothers. So it is another perception which created later on certain problems. Let me continue with the 90s, actually. The Soviet Union dissolved. Yes, it is still dissolved, but Soviet Union's legacy is there. Today, Russia is in Syria and our neighbor. And in Astana process, we have to deal with Russia and Iran. I can tell you, it is not easy to deal with these 2 countries. So Turkey is not the only troublemaker again. Turkey is one of the troublemakers maybe, but there are some other issues. And the period of 90s, before the Soviet Union's decline, 2 things. One, 1990 Kuwaiti intervention of Iraq, or occupation, and that Saddam Hussein was kicked out from Kuwait. This created another problem, the emergence of Kurdish issue in the Middle East. That today in Syria we have 4 military operations undertaken by Turkey. This situation now in northern Syria, that the Americans are there, Russians are there, everybody is there. So it is a change which we have to see and discuss as the result of the Arab Spring. Arab Spring is not good, not only for Turkey, but also for some other countries too. And this, we may not forget, 1990 and 91, the first Gulf War in this respect, was an organization by even Soviet Union and France. They took part in this operation. 19 countries, coalition of willing, came together and get Saddam Hussein out. Operation Desert, General Schwarzkopf also writes in his memoirs how he was actually on the way to Baghdad, 200 kilometers. He could easily take Baghdad, but he didn't. And Turkish president at that time, Turgut Özal, said it is a mistake. So America had to wait for another 12 years to get Saddam Hussein out of power. But in the 90s, when the President Bill Clinton was in power, this is very interesting because on the one hand, the Kurdish issue, not only PKK in Turkey, which is operating since 1985, that it will become now a cross-border terrorism. It will become a danger for the neighboring countries. 3 countries in 90s signed a memorandum of understanding, Turkey, Israel, and India. Why? Because these 3 countries had cross-border terrorism in Kashmir, in Palestine, Israeli issue, and in Turkey, northern Iraq, where PKK is located mainly. And of course, also Syria was one of the shelters which was provided to Israelis, to PKK by the Syrians. In the 90s, interestingly, in 1992, Turkey-Israel relations got a new renaissance. The Turkish ambassador was sent to Israel, first time after 1956, and it was very interesting again that the Turks in 1492, when the Jews were sent out another exodus, as it is called, from Spain, Ottoman Empire was receiving those Jews coming from Spain to Ottoman lands. 500 years later, it was celebrated. There was a political foundation, 500 years foundation. In 1492, 2 things happened. One, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Whether it was good one or bad one, I don't know. The history will show. But that the Turks have been receiving the Jewish, and this Jewish contribution in the Turkish relations, we had really such a euphoria at that time. For example, the Turkish Prime Minister's visit, Tansu Çiller's visit to Israel was such a fanfare, if you want. It was one of the best relations in the 90s. Even in my department at the university, we had a lot of Israeli academics, and one of our academics said, this is the most Israeli-occupied territory after Gaza, because every week there were Israelis coming, which will turn 10 years later to Syrian ones. When Turkey, after 2004, got more relations with Syria, our department in Ankara received now more and more Syrian academics, Syrian politicians. Even the Syrian ambassador came to me to see me, and we debated. And from Ankara to Aleppo to Damascus, you could fly for 59 euro for the weekend. You can enjoy the life there in Damascus and Halep, only with one problem. When you come back, we have stomach problems because of food, because the people have eaten a lot. But interestingly is here, Israel, and now for the listeners, it's also important, Israel was the primary supporter of Turkey in the 90s in the fight against PKK. For example, in Konya, Anatolia, we had this Anatolian Eagle program. The entire Israeli Air Force was making maneuver in Konya. Even there was an hotel, Rixos Hotel, opened exactly for this Israeli soldiers, and the hotel was booked for the next 10 years. So the Israeli-Turkish relations improved also because the Israelis provided Turkey the pictures of PKK camps in Syria. When the Israeli jets were on the way back to Israel, they went 150 kilometers, 200 kilometers inside of Syria, got the pictures, and gave to Turkey. And Turkey was making also reports to tell to the entire world that PKK is in Syria, which was the case in 1998 when General Attila Ateş was speaking. He said, kick this guy out, otherwise our patience will end. And the Hafez Esad, the father of Bashar Assad, kicked him out. Öcalan was first in Syria, and then in Italy, and then in Kenya, taken there. And he, of course, he had, as expected, the Greek passport for his name. All are documented, what I'm talking now. And this became also very important how to fight terrorism in the Middle East. Between Turkey and Syria, the Adana Agreement, as we call it, 1998, is a very important agreement. Who reminded us that there is this agreement? It was Vladimir Putin. A couple of years ago, he said, why are you talking? You have already this agreement with Syria, and just let it to function after this debates of Astana discussions. But one more important in the 90s, which I would like, the Turkish-Egyptian relations. Egypt is the key country for the Arab League. Egypt is the mother of the Arab culture. I had the privilege to visit Egypt a couple of times. And Turkish President Süleyman Demirel and the President of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak, they created a mechanism. Every 6 months, they came and they talked about the developments in the Arab world, in the Middle East and Turkey, like François Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl have done for the European Union developments in the 90s when they came together and talked about the future and enlargement of Europe. It is interesting here, Israel supported Turkey against the sanctions of certain European countries, Germany, Austria, Italy, and recently even Finland since 2018. Now, why it was so? Because, concrete example, Turkey got Leopard tanks from Germany, and the German government, with the pressure of the Greens, they said, no, you cannot sell it to Turkey. So what the Israelis have done, they took the tanks, Leopards, and then repaired them and sold them to Turkey. So as third country providing these tanks to Turkey. Very interesting. We have reports and we have good academic writing by Dervish Fikret Ünal about the Turkish-Israeli relations. One of the very good, I would say, researchers concerning the recent developments in the last 30 years between Turkey and Israel. So, as we know, in the 90s, and maybe one more important, the founder of Bilkent University in Turkey told to me, he passed away, Hoca. He showed me also the documents when the Turkey applied in 1999 for the European Union candidacy. He wrote 85 countries, presidents and prime ministers letters to get support Turkish candidacy. Israel was among the first countries which provided this support for Turkish candidacy in 1999. So why I'm telling you this? To understand that today Israel and Egypt are very close friends. Turkey and Israel, not. Historically speaking, there were two countries which have been fighting against each other. And now the issue is how Turkey will deal now with Israel and Egypt. Since 2013, Turkey had problems with Egypt in particular, after Hosni Mubarak's leaving the power, and Morsi came to power, and after this, now we have General Sisi, and the Turkish-Egyptian relations, actually, economically speaking, they are still good relations, like with Israel. I mean, we have to make this difference. With Egypt, we have economic relations. Thousands of Turkish tourists go to Sharm el-Sheikh. Israel, Turkish economic relations increase 300% every day from Istanbul airport. 12 airplanes fly to Tel Aviv. This is such a sequence, is unbelievable. Why? Because that we don't have political relations so far does not mean that all these economic relations suffered also. But again, the recent developments will bring Turkey and Egypt together, probably also Syria, we will see. Another point I would like to mention here concerning the Turkish-American relations in the Middle East. When AKP, or Justice and Development Party, came to power in 2002, many people expected that Turkey will be now much more active in the Middle East. And it is true. The Jewish lobby, which played an important role in the entire years for Turkish politics in the American Senate and Congress against the Armenian and Greek lobby, the Israeli lobby played always the balancing role. The Turkish-Israeli relations have been, in this respect, very good. And we know, even before AKP came to power, the Israeli lobby in America, they have been also very much supportive. And I was, my age is, by the way, exactly, I was young and innocent professor in the early 2000s when AKP came to power. So the last 20 years I know very well, and I am reading, teaching deeply as far as I can. But the thing is, in 2001, something happened which changed the entire world. This is Al-Qaeda attacks, 9/11 in America. And Turkey was one of the countries which tried to tell to the world how terrorism is dangerous. And this showed again, first time Turkey said, we told you how international terrorism is a danger. Now you understand us. That the newspapers in Paris published Le Monde or the other journals, they said, we are all Americans today. First time in the French history. So Al-Qaeda attacks created again a good advantage for Turkey, how to fight international terrorism. 2003, the Turkish-American relations experienced a very interesting situation. Turkey did not allow that the American troops should pass through Turkey and go to Iraq. This was written by Deniz Bölükbaşı, the former diplomat. He passed away, unfortunately, in his wonderful book, Bir Mart Tezkeresi, First March Petition, how the negotiations went. But it was not first time. It was the second time in our history. In the 1940s, when Germany wanted also to go to Middle East through Turkey to Iraq, the Turkish government at that time under President İsmet İnönü rejected. So those people who are interested, they can read this in the book that the Turkish foreign policy under İsmet İnönü by Zehra Önder, by Bilgi Yayınevi. She wrote this according to German documents, very interesting publications. So in the 2002 upwards, Turkey became, as then Prime Minister after 2003, Tayyip Erdogan said, Turkey is part of this greater Middle East project. I wrote an article together with Bayram Sinkaya, and we published it, the Turkish policy towards Greater Middle East. What it means, Greater Middle East. Greater Middle East was, according to Condoleezza Rice, that 22 countries, territories probably will be changed in the coming decade. Arab Spring is the result, actually, from this policy from the 2005-2006. So in Turkey, there is a good, interesting discussion concerning this Greater Middle East project and the Turkish government's position there. But what we have to know here is in 2006, Turkey and America signed the strategic partnership. This term, strategic partnership, is so much abused, actually. Everyone had strategic partnership with everyone. It's a fashion. It is something, I don't know how far this strategic partnership functions. The diplomats should know this better than I do. But this 2006 is important because in 2007, Turkish at that time Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan visited Washington, D.C., 5th of November 2007. When he came out from the meeting with George W. Bush, he said this sentence, "Thanks God, we got what we wanted." This sentence, I don't know still what is it, what it meant, but in future, of course, it will be probably written, because since then, the issue of the Kurdish question became more and more stronger. And the Turkish peace process with the Kurdish groups, and I wouldn't go so far to say PKK, but there are views which also say this, that this process, which lasted until 2013-14, despite the Arab Spring, failed. It was a try, but no solution. Now, with the Arab Spring, the new situation in Syria, in Iraq, even in Iran will be another discussion point. I think the Arab Spring, now I come to Arab Spring and then how Turkey changed. First of all, we have to understand Turkey and Syria have been two countries in the early 2000s, how the enemies can become friends overnight, or how the enemies can become, friends can become enemies overnight. I remember my talk in 2013 in Gaziantep. I was speaking in front of 250 people, Arab, Syrian oppositions, Turkish intellectuals, politicians, governors, name whatsoever. And I used a metaphor which was used later on by several journalists. I said, Turkey has experienced, in the case of Syria, the happiness of marriage and the death in one day, 24 hours. So everybody was happy, and next day, suddenly, you are enemy. It is very difficult to explain this change. I don't know the future. We need more research. We need more discussions about this. One of the Turkish ambassadors, Ömer Önhon, who was the last Turkish ambassador in Damascus, he wrote the book from his eyes. The title is Bir Diplomatın Gözünden Suriye. This book is interesting because we see there how the Turkish-Syrian relations developed and stopped. Turkey signed 155 bilateral treaties with Syria. There was technically no border. Everyone was going and coming. And now the problem is we have 5 million Syrians and they don't go back. Before it was not one-way ticket. It was come and go. But this is now that Turkey is in the world #1 country to have so many refugees. It is unique. And now this is another domestic problem now, whether the Syrian refugees will go back and how to go, how the European Union will help, or the Astana process, whether it will provide a solution, because cities like Idlib, Idlib became the, this is my definition, garbage of international terrorism. There are all type of terrorism, all type of radicals, and this is another problem between Turkey and Russia and Syrian regime. But the fact remains that Arab Spring, to my view, is not something happened out of blue. It was actually a process. Maybe most of you would remember a BBC program, Hard Talk, in Al Jazeera and many other Arab televisions. The youngsters were educated in the beginning from 1905, 6, 7, 8, 10, and then Arab Spring was intended to change the Arab regimes, like in Central and Eastern Europe, to become democratic one. It failed. Democracy failed. Kerber Foundation and Cambridge Institute for Global Geopolitical Institute, they made a conference in Jordan, in Amman. I was part of it, which was also published later on also in newspapers as well as a report. The idea was whether the Arab countries, Muslim countries, could have the same type of democratization process like 1648 Peace of Westphalia. I was not believing from the very beginning anyway, because at the tables there was Saudi, Yemeni, Iraqi, Iranian, Turk, me, and some others. I mean, the culture of the Middle East is not European culture. It failed, and any step forward also in future will fail. Abraham Accords are different. Maybe I should also mention about this a little bit later. But that Saddam Hussein is out, Gaddafi is out, Tunisian leader is out, Yemeni leader is out. Bashar Assad is still there, but weakened. I don't know what will be the case in Syria. Syria can be divided into 4 pieces. There is an academic article written by David Altman. David Altman wrote the article, which will become a book at the end of the year, with the title, The Fait Accompli Conquest. So what it means, fait accompli conquest. When Daesh emerged, everyone was shocked, because they controlled a certain area, they printed the money, they got their army. We call it Toyota wars. They have the same type of shoes, the same type of jeeps, etc. And this Daesh issue made it possible that the Syrian Kurds became now the lovely boy of Americans and the Russians, because as the local forces, they have been helping to Russia and to America to fight Daesh. And we, the Turks, our borders, unfortunately, became so transparent that everyone come and go. And the problem, and this is a problem now, for those who follow us, maybe they should take note. It is always a big problem of a democratic country living as neighbor to non-democratic countries. What it means, all those foreign fighters coming from all over the world, they land in Istanbul, take the plane to Adana or to Antioquia, and from there they will be taken to Syrian side, to radical forces, to Daesh. That the Daesh leader was just killed 5 kilometers to the Turkish border is not a joke. And this is a problem. Turkey cannot say to people, sorry, you cannot enter into the country if they have the valid passport. Swedish passports, Finnish passports, German passports, British passports, Belgium, name whatever you want. everyone was there. So it is a problem. And in one conference in Singapore, the international police organization director said, we work with two countries as the best, China and Turkey. So this is Interpol director, Australian background, he was talking to us in that way. Turkey has a trouble because these borders, Iran, Iraq, Syria, are dangerous neighbor borders. And you cannot always control. It is a big problem. This is not like the Turkish-Greek border, that the Greeks make a wall that you cannot go to the other side. It is not so easy. We have 911 kilometers border with Syria. We have 150 kilometers border with Iran. I mean, the people now from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, name whatever, they come. How can you control? I mean, if this is a problem for Turkey, but Turkey is the country still working internationally in good cooperation, at least. This is also my discussions with the other countries' people. Definitely, we can criticize many things, but we cannot criticize that Turkey is containing now 10 million people, 5 million Syrians, and we paid, this is the official numbers, $80 billion in the last 10 years. This $80 billion, if this money would have been spent for the Turkish economic developments, today we wouldn't have this problem. And Turkey, as NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg said, Turkey is the country which suffered most under cross-border terrorism and terrorism among the NATO countries. This is true. Since 1985, more than, this is the number, $200 billion plus 45,000 people, civilians, military, police, lost their lives. So those countries who criticize Turkey, sometimes they should be making this empathy. And now we see what happens in Russian-Ukrainian conflict, that these two countries, Finland and Sweden, want to join NATO is not something out of blue, because they know how dangerous neighborhood they have. We, the Turks, we have 10 countries and 10 problems. This policy of Ahmet Davutoğlu, 0 problems with the neighboring countries, created only problems with all neighboring countries. Only one country, we didn't have any problems, 0 problems really. It was Ukraine, and now Ukraine is having a big problem. So 2 countries, Ukraine and Serbia, the Turkish citizens can go there without passport with their identity cards. Now, I finish probably, how many minutes I have done? No, it's finished. Okay. Now.
Our home is your home.
Thank you very much. Now, I was one of the critics concerning the Turkish Middle East policy from the very beginning, Syrian policy and some others. Even in the year 2016, I published an article where I said, if the government insists to continue to have this policy, which I consider wrong, Turkey will face more challenges. Now, in the year 2022, I'm one of the very happy academics to see that this has been now revised, and the relations with Israel, with Egypt, even with Syria, to a certain degree started, that this precious loneliness discussion is out, and that Abraham treaties, Abraham Accords, again make Syria, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and all the Gulf countries closer again. Just again, in 2 days, we have the visit of Prince Salman from Saudi Arabia and the Israeli foreign minister. I mean, which was not thinkable before, or United Arab Emirates visits this year also. So it means there is a change. So the Turkish government also sees that going back to the original policies, not to get involved in the inner Arab conflict, is a right policy, which was even told by Kemal Atatürk in the 30s. Now, where the Middle East is going? What is Middle East? Open question, I don't know. But what I do know is, if I may make predictions, the Middle East will become now economically an important one because they have oil and gas. Iran will be very important. The Turkish-Iranian relations, I couldn't talk, but it's another subject. But the fact remains that Turkey is, with her multilateral policies, is the key player in the Middle East. Turkey is not a power center, is not a superpower, but Turkey is a regional player. And regional players are important. I give always this metaphor. Ronaldo is a Portuguese one, but he plays also for the Spanish team. So also for Italian team, for the British team. Turkey is playing this global role. I think the recent developments, in particular with the Turkish States Union, Turkey gains another geostrategic value. Middle East remains for Turkey a troublesome region, but now the discussions among the Arab countries on the one hand, Israel on the other side, and the Americans is a new development. Not to forget, of course, the European Union policies towards the Middle East. This, again, Turkey, in the long run, will be in good terms. I consider this as a sine qua non to talk to Syria in order to get the refugees safe and sound back, to talk to Israel for the oil and gas, to talk to Egypt as the important regional ally as in the past. And of course, when I do talk about the Middle East, I talk also about the North African countries, MENA region. So suddenly, MENA region, Africa, Middle East, Turkey is now trying to find a new position after this Arab Spring created so much damage, and also the wrongdoings inevitably, as again, the politicians, the statesmen can take wrong decisions. The people, nations suffer. We, the academics, when we take wrong decisions, maybe we write another book or another article and nobody cares. But the statesmen, when they take wrong decisions, then the impact will be generation long. So this is my advice again, that in the Middle East, we should need more new mechanisms to talk, to discuss, to create new understanding of what is the national interest and what is the regional interest. I'm optimistic by my nature, but it does not mean that I do oversee the pessimistic developments. Therefore, Middle East is and will be one of the most important areas where the Turkish foreign policy has to work and face new challenges, but in a very to solve them in a very constructive way. The rhetoric should change. The rhetoric should not be confrontational, but rather more cooperative. So I think now Turkey is making back to the future, if you want. It's a good development, and the visits from Middle East leaders one by one to Turkey will show once again how Turkey is a global player, plays an important role. Last, from maybe one book, by the Japanese researcher Kohei Imai, who will be at my university from October on as a guest professor. He was also my student. He wrote about Turkish foreign policy, Turkey as a middle power in the Middle East. We are not nuclear power, we are a middle power. And Turkey should not overstretch her capabilities, not to make promises which Turkey cannot fulfill. So it means more realistic policies is requested. Once again, Turkey remains not only for Middle East, but for the entire power balance of power politics of all the big countries as an essential cooperation partner. And probably, this is my expectation, Turkey will do it, learning from the mistakes from the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Baji. Now I would like to ask Ambassador Professor Milan Yazbec, please, to start with the discussion.
Thank you very much, Director. Dear friend, Hussein Baji, for a while. This has not been
Exactly.
And listening to your very deep and comprehensive, all-encompassing lecture, we have received a very in-depth, detailed insight view on the role of Turkish politics, foreign politics, with the focus of the Middle East. This is normal because, as we have seen, Middle East is the most natural global environment of Turkey. I was glad to hear that quotation. I quote from you: Turkey is playing global role as a regional power. This is a very rare combination, and listening to this, how you described and contemplated Turkish development during the last 100 years, it shows this. So let me wrap up this part with a few questions and maybe with some of your more, let's say, comprehensive and then focused shorter answers. It will be more in addition to this what you have been telling, and this what we see from this perception here as important. Let me first start with the Western Balkans. So it is, as far as I know, an utmost important region for Turkey from historical, regional, ethnical, cultural, etc., point of view. Would you explain in a, let's say, few minutes this attitude, this relation? I agree with this, what you said, that we cannot speak about neo-Ottomanism. This is my personal point of view, and I agree with this. But still, since it has been mentioning maybe mostly in that frame, could you also comment on this?
Yes. It was 24th of April 2011 when then Turkish Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu was speaking in the city Sivas for the AKP party congress there. He said, we want to become a Cihan Şumul state. Cihan Şumul is the empire, global, great power. This statement, of course, has been very negatively received by the Balkan countries and by the Austrians. At the 8th of May 2011, I was in Vienna, Landesakademie für Verteidigung. I was speaking there so in front of 200 people. And then one Austrian general said, Professor Baji, your foreign minister said that you want to get a huge empire again. I said, no, don't take it so seriously. I mean, it's exaggerating. The second one, the Bosnia-Herzegovina's deputy foreign minister, a Serbian, a Croatian origin woman. We had a conference in Berlin in 2013, and she said to me, Professor Baji, why your foreign minister is speaking like this? Sarajevo is not Muslim city only. It is Croatian city, it is Serbian city altogether. I said, don't tell it to me, tell to him. I'm academic. I'm not responsible what the foreign minister says. I'm responsible to make analysis. But the fact is, going back to 1990s, when Süleyman Demirel was the president, he was using the terminology Büyük Türkiye, Great Turkey. I'm in China, in Tiananmen Square, accompanied by a Chinese diplomat. Suddenly, out of blue, he looked at me and said, Professor Baji, do not your politicians learn geography in the schools? I said, of course they learn. How do you come? He said, because your president, he said from Adriatic to Chinese wall, Turkish word. Adriatic here. I said, sorry, we the Turks, we love this exaggeration. No, the politicians, our politicians love the exaggeration. He said, yes, but tell them, Chinese wall is just 70 kilometers to Beijing. So it means even the Chinese have this fear. This is the historical consciousness. And we, at the moment, we have to deal with this historical consciousness once again. One of the new topics after COVID will be how the countries reinterpret their history once again. The new generations from your country, from my country, from the European countries, how they will interpret what happened before. Now, what happens in the heart of Europe and the Western Balkans, including in March, in February, I was in Budapest in a conference where we had the discussion about the European Union enlargement in the Balkan, in the Central Europe and in the Balkans, Western Balkans. Also from Slovenia, Montenegro, Serbia, the Czech Republic, and Albania, everybody was there. What I got from there, the Western Balkan countries, most of them are not European Union members. The enlargement process still going on. Some of them are NATO countries. We have seen when President Macron says that he does not like to see Albania in the European Union, what it means then. Or that the country, Greece, was rejecting 11 years long Macedonians with one word, North Macedonia. We, the Turks, we never use this. In all NATO documents, in Turkish documents, Turkey called always Macedonia, and the NATO documents called Fyrom, former Yugoslavian Republic. I mean, this type of things, and the recent one between Bulgaria and Macedonia. I was talking to a diplomat, a Bulgarian diplomat, and I told to him that we have some legitimate security interest in Syria and in all this area. And then somehow we came to the discussion. I said, why you make so much difficulties for Macedonian membership into the European Union? He looked at me and said, Professor Baji, we have legitimate security interest. I said, I understand you. But it is something which is very controversial. What Turkey does in this respect, Turkish Western Balkan politics. Balkans have been always for Turkey, of course, important. This is historical fact. But Turkey has never been against any enlargement process of NATO. None of the Balkan countries who joined NATO, Turkey was showing any negative behavior. Except now, Finland and Sweden is another issue.
But they're not Balkans.
No. But in the Balkans, Turkey has been very cooperative. We may not only think about this government, but also already previous Süleyman Demirel period, that there was a organization of the Balkan intellectuals and politicians. Hikmet Çetin, Süleyman Demirel, and many others joined this. So we need more to talk. And I understand the concern of smaller countries. What happens now just on the other side of Poland and Ukraine, and the visit of Olaf Scholz, the German Bundeskanzler, recently to some Balkan countries, that they say that it should be as soon as possible the enlargement process. The Austrians started actually this a couple of years ago, this enlargement process. But this year at the conference in Budapest, I saw the outcry of Montenegro, for example. The representative of Montenegro said, what do you want to get more? We are 600,000 people, small country. We have done everything what you want. Why do you stop it? So it will be now more and more debate. But the enlargement process will take place.
Thank you very much. So, I use this rare but pleasant opportunity that there are 3 professors here. So I'm taking holistic approach. Huh?
Yes.
I will make 4 more steps, touching more or less on all of this, what you have just mentioned, but from specific points of view. So next step, Turkey and the EU. Well, we are more or less the same age, Yeah. I don't remember, but I know. My first school day was then when Turkey applied for the membership in the EU. So it's long ago. Could you comment a little bit on the current state of the affairs, Turkey, EU, and what are the perspectives? So with a few minutes that we receive an update from academic point of view.
Turkey is very thankful to Great Britain that they paid so much money to leave the European Union. Then you have to ask why Britain left the European Union. Very simple reason. They didn't want to get orders from Brussels anymore. Now, Britain, they left the European Union. What happened? Within 2 weeks' time, Turkey and Britain signed a common trade agreement. The European Union's security today depends on 4 non-European Union countries: America, Great Britain, Russia, and Turkey. The Turkish membership into the European Union is an historical claim. Under today's conditions, it will be not possible in the foreseeable future. But I would like to give you this example. I did bring 2 academics to President Süleyman Demirel in the year 2011. They made work, democracy in Greece, Macedonia, and Turkey. And Süleyman Demirel talked and answered the questions. And one of the academics said, so what do you think about Turkish membership? He said, yesterday is yesterday, today is today. And the guy didn't understand because it is in our political culture a very important metaphor. I said, now I cannot answer you. Later on, I will tell you. And Süleyman Demirel said one sentence, but tomorrow is another day. And this tomorrow is another day, what Turkish is looking for. What happened now in the heart of Europe is unbelievable. Nobody would have said before 24th of February that there would be a clash in the heart of Europe, that the entire Russians, the nation, is excluded overnight. I said, we have experienced this. Now, many institutions in Europe, think tanks, stopped all the relations with the Russian institutions. And this is interesting, as we have done it in 2015. When Turkey shut down the Russian plane overnight, from White Russia to Mongolia, all the Turkish projects with Russia stopped. Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, name whatsoever. This type of punishment is very dangerous. It does not show this highly civilized world. That you do not teach Tolstoy in the University of Milano. What hell is it? I was in Milano, by the way, exactly on that day when it was. Or that the conductor of Munich National Orchestra, because he has good relations with Putin, the guy is kicked out. Or as a doctor who said he does not treat anymore people from White Russia and Russia. I mean, at the moment, we have a very intellectual discussion. Later on, maybe we can talk more. The values, what we have seen in Europe, the highest value, are now under discussion. What is changed also since 2015? The migration issue. The migration issue was also responsible that Angela Merkel had to leave the power. Now, migration is a big problem. The Russian-Ukrainian war is a big problem. I think the Turkish membership is now not so important anymore. It is important as a historical legacy, but in order to join the European Union today, under what conditions? Do you think that Ukraine will be taken because they fight against Russia? There is 100,000 pages that one country has to improve this integration process. It takes years. The European membership is not free of charge. It's not free ride. Now, we will have, and the European leadership today is also not the same European leadership as in the previous decades. Mr. Macron lost the absolute majority in the parliament. So please look what happens. Germany I follow Germany very closely. The discussions in Germany, whether Germany supports Ukraine or not, to whom to believe, I don't know also. Ambassador Melnik in Ukraine, or the President Zelensky, or the German defense minister. There are words coming and going, but we don't know what is supplied, what is not supplied. But the war in Ukraine will continue. In this respect, the Turkish membership is not anymore essential at the moment.
Thank you very much. Very, I would say, academically pragmatic. And this is academically realpolitik to say so.
I am.
Regression, I'm very glad to you personally, because you're mentioning all the time the late President Demirel.
Yeah.
We were in touch, we were good friends, so this is one of my very dearest experiences from those times. So next step, the third one, you already mentioned, war in Ukraine. Let me just put the question from only this point of view. We see now, we are witnessing the manifestation of a very specific heavyweight role of Turkey. So within the context of everything what you have been told, what you have told so far, could you point out this? What is this heavyweight, specific weight of Turkey in this war? And not going into the details, okay. I mean, aggression, a breach of international law, okay. But the role of Turkey as a playing global role, as a middle power.
Now, when the discussion was there, whether Turkey should mediate between two sides, I said, yes, this is diplomatically, politically, ethically, is the right decision. At the end of the day, the Turks, the Ukrainians, and the Russians, we eat the same fish from Black Sea. We have Black Sea economic cooperation. Turkey has very good relations with both sides, and Turkey is the one which does speak to those two countries. Now the France wants to take the role of Turkey, but it is not given yet. Istanbul is always nice, to be, or in Antalya, to be there. When in Antalya, Lavrov and Kubali met. I was there in Antalya Forum, by the way. It was very important, interesting. Turkey and Ukraine and Russia, these three countries will be further important for the future of the Black Sea in economic terms, in political terms. The Russians, of course, they have a Turkish image, Turkish perspective. Last week, Lavrov was in Ankara. I watched the press conference. I suggested this, my dear friend, because he was not able to fly to Serbia. I suggested to give him Turkish citizenship for 1 day or 2 days, and then send him from Ankara to Serbia. There's direct flight, by the way. So go and speak, and nobody could prevent this. So this is another facilitation maybe by Turkey. But I think it is a tragedy, and Turkey should talk to both countries as much as possible, for the sake of Turkey, for the sake of the European Union, and for the sake, of course, of these two countries.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is what you just said now. You know, I think this careness of Turkey for this issue is also the result of your long historical development, because you feel things as a big power, and you have this interest that things are in order. I think this is an important experience for everybody. 2 more steps to go. Turkey and Slovenia. On the 2nd of February this year, it was 30 years after Turkey, among the first countries recognized Slovenia. On 28th of August, it would be 30 years since we established diplomatic relations. We have strategic partnership from early days. At that time, this word was not yet watered down. I agree with you. It was concluded on 3rd of March of 2011, when Prime Minister Pahor visited Turkey, and with Prime Minister Erdogan, they signed the strategic partnership agreement. By the way, 1 year later, in May 2012, the then Prime Minister Erdogan came to Slovenia to visit. He received a high prize from the Institute Ifimes. We have more than doubled the bilateral trade from those times. There is a network of honorary consuls of Slovenia in Turkey. Also, Turkey, after a long time, has a honorary consul in Slovenia. He's sitting over there. So, could you comment on this on this briefly, in this stream of thought that you are developing now?
Thank you. It's unfortunately the first time that I'm here, despite the fact that I have been in 120 countries before, and it's 121, by the way. So I'm not expert on Turkish-Slovenian relations yet, but I claim academically in future to be one. So, but I can say in general framework, Slovenia and Turkish relations are good. At least there are not big problems. And we have also a very successful ambassador here to continue to improve the relations. Slovenia, as a European Union member, is important for us, for Turkey. In 1992, I wrote my associate professorship thesis about the war on Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I read then, of course, how the German foreign minister at that time, Hans-Dietrich Genscher, recognized Croatia and Slovenia at the 24th of December 1992. Germany, 91, but then it was recognized. And this was a very interesting development for the further war between Croatia and Serbia, and later on, of course, the tragedy in Bosnia. Slovenia is a very highly educated people having country. Within the European Union, you have a good image, and you also in the Balkans, in general. When I look to former Yugoslavia, of course, under Marshal Tito, which is also from here, I think in 1954, when we signed the treaty, Balkan Pact, in Bilet, which I will visit tomorrow, it's important for us in 1954 because this treaty, unfortunately, was not successful because of the Turkish-Greek conflict and then the returning back of Yugoslavia, 5th of May, 1955, when Khrushchev told to Tito, come back. Yeah, Stalin made a lot of mistakes, come back to a family of communist countries. Then this Treaty of Bilet was death-born treaty. But the fact is today we have a new world order discussions. We have a new situation. And I can only pray that the Turkish-Slovenian relations will improve and will be better. We contribute intellectually, academically, also as think tank, of course, for the further improvement of the relations between these two, between our countries.
Thank you very much. And also, there is, as I mentioned, important economic development. At the moment, we have the two biggest investment in Slovenia, the Karavanka tunnel, and the second railway from Koper to Divača. They both include two Turkish companies or international holdings, Yapı Merkezi and Cengiz Holding. So this is very important. The last step, this our brief discussion. NATO enlargement. There are two new members in the pipeline. You already mentioned Sweden and Finland. Let me just ask you to comment. You already touched upon, but comment a little bit additionally. Security concerns of Turkey within this frame to enable us and everybody who follows us here to understand better the issue of your security concerns and to be even more convinced of Turkish devotion for NATO.
Thank you. Before I came here, until Friday evening, I was in Finland. And I had, with the president of Finland and foreign minister of Finland, one-day conference. Altogether, we spent 3 hours. And everything I can unfortunately not tell because it is Chatham House rules. But publicly, what is said and what I said to Finnish radio, television, and papers, I can't tell. It is unfortunate that both of them applied at the same day. Maybe if Finland and Sweden would apply in different times, Finland would be much easier. But now we have two countries at the same time. Sweden is a little bit more difficult than Finland, but Finland also applies sanctions since 2018, Afrin operation of Turkey in Syria, in the defense industry. The Turkish defense industry is improving very fast. 70% of the Turkish defense industry now is, as we call it, yerli ve milli, national, and also produced by the Turkish companies, Avelsan, Aselsan, Roketsan, and we have also good relations in this respect with Slovenia. Finland is having 1,300 kilometers border with Russia, longer than our border with Syria, 910 kilometers. I think, I said this also in Turkish television on Saturday night, Habertürk, by the way. I said the decision of NATO enlargement is a grand strategic decision. Turkey cannot and will not stop the process. But at the moment we have a delay. It's like a train coming to a main station, but somewhere a couple of kilometers there is some electric cut or something happened. The train is there, but the train will go to main terminal. a little bit late, but it will go. So this is the situation. The second one, Turkey has never stopped any NATO enlargement process 14 times, never. So in this case, this legitimate security interest, I think Sweden will also realize how it is difficult to have a neighbor which is exercising cross-border terrorism. The decision of Finnish and Swedish people to join NATO is a right decision. It's an historic decision because they decided by their own will, not by the pressure of the others. They saw how dangerous is the situation. They just want to get as soon as possible this security umbrella because they are neutral countries. Historically speaking, one country is giving up 200 years neutrality, the other one 75 years neutrality. It is not an easy decision. Austria does not need it because it's already surrounded by all the NATO members. It is like Romania in the Cold War years, this non-nuclear zone. I mean, Romania was surrounded by all these nuclear weapons. It doesn't matter whether we have it or not. It is a similar situation. Turkey's devotion to NATO. Turkey became member in 1952, even earlier than Germany and many other countries. But it was not very easy. Turkey sent to Korea 27,000 people in the 3 years' time. 717 people died and many thousands lost. And this is today when I do talk to Koreans, where I have been, but also the ambassador of South Korea in Ankara, we call each other brothers. Why? Because we have been helping them against North Korea. By the way, there's a wonderful book by Anne Fifield. She wrote about the Kim Il-sung with the title Kim, one of the best biographies. I show you later on the book. And this is very interesting. Turkey is member of NATO and having the privileges, of course, as every member. We want to join NATO, European Union, and they want to join NATO. There is no free lunch. I mean, they have to talk, and diplomacy is requested, of course. I do not think that in the long run, these two countries will be out of NATO. It will be not. It's my academic position, but at least I put my academic charisma at this stage. I said, if Turkey would say yes in 2 weeks' time, that Finland and Sweden come to NATO, then my speech today, forget it, then my charisma is destroyed. But I do not expect.
Then you will have another speech here.
Okay, thank you, my dear.
So thank you so much, Professor Baji, dear friend Hussein. So with this now, I would ask the audience for possibly a question or two, not more, but since we have been exposed and exhausted and an in-depth lecture, very, very useful, important one. So if there is a question or two from the audience, just present yourself and put the question. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Nate Brizo, University of Ljubljana, Faculty of Public Administration. First of all, Professor, thank you very much for your very interesting lecture. And what was quite interesting to me was I just hosted some friends from Finland for a week. And they spoke very highly of your country, so I guess the people don't have any, they're not disappointed with the stance of Turkey right now. But short question, you said before, return to the future, back to the future.
Yeah.
Let's look 10 years ahead. What is your opinion in 10 years? Will Finland be part of NATO? And will Turkey be part of EU? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nate. You now have the chance to read to write the next book, the next decade after Finland.
The answer is very simple. Turkey will be not member of the European Union, but Finland will be member of NATO.
Thank you. Very brief question, even brief answer. Okay. One more question, if there is any. Not necessarily.
I mean, it was very clear, as you said, because we have been starting to talk about the Middle East, but go also to other. We have been talking about the Middle East, but now we move to other regions, which is another debate. And I know myself, when I do start to talk, then another 3 hours, I want to keep you here.
Okay, thank you so much. With this, I suggest that we will slowly finish. I pass the word to the director.
I would like to thank Professor Dr. Hussein Baji for his interesting lecture, which will help us understand better the Turkish foreign policy and the situations in the Middle East and the region in general. At the end, I would like to invite you to our next events, probably first days of July, hosted Deputy Prime Minister any countries in Western Balkan.
Inshallah, would be. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mila, thank you very much. Very good intellectual friend, and is one of the prides of this Slovenian side. Thank you very much. And also to you, let me give you my card.
Join.
Yes.
Bahtiyar.
Bahtiyar.